welcome back to Whispers in the Dark. Turn the lights low, settle in, and listen carefully. Some stories are not meant to be spoken too loudly. There are places where the woods do not feel empty, even when no animal moves between the trees. Places where the silence has weight. Places where the darkness seems to lean closer when you say the wrong name. Tonight's story is about one of those places, a cabin deep in the pines, a group of friends who thought they were alone, and something in the trees that learned their voices before it took their skin. So lock your doors, keep away from the windows, and remember this: not every voice calling from outside belongs to the person you love. Now, let's begin. The cabin stood at the end of a dirt road that had no name. It was hidden deep inside a pine forest where the trees grew tall and close together, their black trunks packed so tightly that daylight struggled to reach the ground. Even in the afternoon, the woods seemed dim. The branches locked overhead like fingers. The air smelled of wet bark, cold earth, and old leaves that had rotted into the soil long before anyone alive could remember them falling. The place belonged to Daniel Ward's uncle, though belonged was too warm a word for it. Nobody really owned that land. People only borrowed it until something convinced them to leave. Daniel had not been there since he was 12 years old. Back then, he remembered it as a hunting cabin with sagging steps, a tin roof, and a wood stove that smoked when the wind came from the north. He remembered his uncle telling him never to whistle after dark, never to answer a voice from the woods unless he could see the person speaking, never to follow tracks that changed shape halfway through the snow. Daniel had laughed at those warnings then. He was not laughing when he drove back 20 years later. The old truck bounced along the dirt road, tires cracking thin ice in the ruts. The trees leaned close on both sides, scraping the doors with dry branches. Beside him, Emma Hart pressed her forehead against the passenger window and watched the forest slide by in streaks of black and gray. Emma had dark hair cut just below her chin, sharp eyes, and the restless patience of someone who was always listening for the part of the conversation nobody else noticed. She had been Daniel's friend since university, though there had been a time when both of them had wondered if friendship was the name for it. That time had passed, or at least they both pretended it had. In the back seat sat Noah Briggs and Claire Mercer. Noah was broad-shouldered and loud in the way some men became when they were afraid of silence. He had brought 2 coolers, 3 flashlights, a hunting knife he kept showing off, and a bottle of whiskey he said was older than their regrets. Claire sat curled beneath a wool blanket, pale fingers wrapped around her phone, even though the signal had died 40 minutes earlier. She was small, blonde, careful, and always dressed like she expected to be photographed. Out here, beneath the gray sky and the closing pines, she looked like she had been placed in the wrong story. Behind them, in a second car, came Marcus Reed and his younger sister Lucy. Marcus was a nurse calm and practical, with tired eyes and hands that never stopped moving. He had agreed to come because Daniel had said it would be quiet, and Marcus had not had quiet in a long time. Lucy had come because she hated being left out. She was 21, bright, impulsive, and too curious about things that should have been left alone. They arrived just as the sun began to sink. The cabin appeared suddenly at the end of the road, crouched between the trees like a thing trying not to be seen. It was larger than Daniel remembered, or perhaps the woods had grown closer around it. The porch leaned slightly to one side. Moss covered the roof in dark, wet patches. The windows were dull and dusty, reflecting the trees in warped strips, so that the cabin seemed to have many narrow, watching eyes. Noah gave a low whistle. Daniel turned sharply. Noah grinned. "What? Don't whistle here." The grin faded for a second, then returned bigger than before. "Seriously." Daniel kept his hands on the steering wheel. "Just don't." Emma looked at him. "That one of your uncle's rules." "One of many." Lucy climbed out of the second car, boots sinking into the damp ground. "Are we talking creepy old folklore rules or actual survival rules?" Daniel stepped down from the truck and looked toward the tree line. For a moment, he thought he saw something between the trunks. Tall, bent, too thin. Then the shape resolved into a dead pine split by lightning. Its blackened branches twisted upward like antlers. "Both," Daniel said. Inside, the cabin smelled of dust, ash, and mouse droppings. Their footsteps creaked across the floorboards. A stone fireplace filled most of one wall. Old hunting photographs hung crooked beside it, the faces inside them faded to pale blurs. In one picture, Daniel's uncle stood beside a deer, one hand gripping its antler. The deer's eyes had been scratched out. Emma noticed it first. "Did you do that when you were a kid?" Daniel stared at the photograph. "No." Noah dragged in the coolers. "Maybe your uncle hated being watched by dinner." Claire shivered. "That's horrible." "Dinner usually is, if you ask it." Marcus shot Noah a tired look. "Maybe save the comedy until after we get the fire going." The cabin had 3 bedrooms downstairs and a loft above the main room. Daniel took the smallest bedroom near the back. Emma claimed the room beside his. Noah and Claire took the larger room near the front, though Claire complained about the smell until Noah promised to shake out the blankets. Marcus and Lucy went up to the loft, which had 2 narrow beds and a railing that overlooked the fireplace. By the time they unpacked, night had fully arrived. It did not fall gradually. It closed. One moment, the forest outside was gray and dim. The next, every window had become a black rectangle. The trees vanished into a darkness so complete that the glass reflected only the room behind them. Their faces floated there, distorted by age and dust. The fire took slowly, hissing as damp wood caught. The flames painted the room in orange light. Shadows moved across the walls like long fingers testing the seams. They ate canned stew and bread. Noah opened the whiskey. Lucy found an old deck of cards in a drawer. For a while, the cabin became almost normal. Laughter warmed the corners. Claire forgot to check her dead phone. Marcus relaxed enough to smile. Emma sat on the floor near the fire with her boots off, knees drawn up, watching sparks climb the chimney. Daniel tried to enjoy it, but the woods pressed against the cabin. He felt them behind every wall. Around 10, the first sound came. A knock, not at the door, at the back window. 3 soft taps. Everyone stopped talking. Noah raised his eyebrows. Branch. There were no branches close enough to touch that window. Tap. Claire whispered, "Do not." Noah was already standing. Daniel caught his wrist. "Leave it." Noah looked down at his hand. "You are really committed to the spooky cabin act." I said leave it. Tap. This time, the sound was slower. Patient. Emma stood and moved beside Daniel. Nobody go near the glass. From the loft, Lucy leaned over the railing. Is someone outside? Marcus pulled her back gently. Stay away from the edge. The room held its breath. Then a voice came from the darkness, beyond the window. Daniel. It was faint, muffled by glass, but it was Daniel's name. Claire made a small sound and covered her mouth. Noah's face went slack. Who the hell was that? Daniel did not answer. The voice came again. Daniel. It sounded like an old man. Dry, breathless, familiar. Daniel felt the blood leave his hands. Emma whispered, "Who is it?" Daniel stared at the black window. In the reflection, he saw his own face pale and hollow. Beyond it, deep in the glass, something shifted. "My uncle," he said. Lucy frowned. "I thought your uncle died." "He did." No one spoke. Outside, the voice changed. "Danny boy." Daniel's stomach clenched. No one had called him that since he was 12. The voice dragged itself against the glass. "Open up." Noah stepped back from the window. "Nope, I am officially done." Marcus came down from the loft, moving slowly. Could someone be messing with us? Another cabin nearby. Daniel shook his head. There is nothing for miles. The voice outside became softer, almost sad. "Cold out here, Danny." The tapping began again. Claire started crying silently, tears shining in the firelight. Noah put an arm around her, though his own hand shook. Emma leaned close to Daniel. "You know what this is?" Daniel looked at the floor. He remembered his uncle's voice, by a fire much like this one. Never answer if it calls, in a voice you know. Never look too long at its face. Never let it hear you afraid. "We keep the doors locked," Daniel said. "We keep the fire going. We do not go outside until sunrise." Noah laughed once, high and humorless. "You are acting like there is an actual monster out there." Something struck the back wall, so hard the cabin shook. Claire screamed. Dust fell from the ceiling. The fire jumped. Marcus grabbed Lucy as she stumbled on the stairs. The sound came again, a heavy slam that rattled the window frames and sent one of the old hunting photographs crashing to the floor. Then silence, a silence so complete that the crackling fire sounded obscene. Noah lifted his knife from the table. Daniel said, "Put that down." "Why?" "Because if that thing comes in here, that will not help." The back window fogged from the outside. A smear of pale breath spread across the glass. Something pressed close. At first they saw only darkness against darkness. Then the fire shifted, and a shape appeared beyond the window. It was tall enough that its face should have been above the frame. Yet somehow it was bent down, peering in. Its body was thin in a way that hurt to look at. Not simply starved, but stretched. Its shoulders rose too high. Its arms hung past its knees, ending in hands with long, dark fingers curled against the siding. Its skin looked black and wet, clinging tight over ribs that jutted like broken cage bars. Patches of coarse hair hung from its back and neck in tangled ropes. Bone pushed against its hide in sharp ridges. The head was the worst part. It was not fully human and not fully animal. The skull was long, the jaw narrow, and split too far back, crowded with teeth that looked uneven and handmade. Strips of flesh dangled from its mouth like torn cloth. Above its brow rose antlers, crooked and splintered, as if stolen from a dead stag and forced through skin that had never meant to hold them. Its eyes glowed faintly, not bright like fire, dull yellow and hateful, like old coals buried in ash. It smiled with Daniel's uncle's voice. "Let me in." Lucy screamed. The thing moved so fast the eye could barely follow it. One moment it was at the window. The next it was gone, leaving only a smear across the glass. Noah backed away until he hit the table. "What was that? What was that?" Daniel whispered, "Do not say its name." "What was that? Do not say its name." Claire folded down onto the floor, hands over her ears. Emma knelt beside her, murmuring softly, but her eyes stayed on the window. Marcus moved to the front door and checked the lock. The handle twisted beneath his hand. He jumped back. The knob turned left, then right. Slowly, experimentally, a voice on the other side said, "Marcus." It was Lucy's voice. Lucy stood on the stairs behind him, sobbing. The voice outside said again, "Marcus, please, I fell." Marcus turned toward his sister. She shook her head violently. "I am here. I am right here." The voice beyond the door became wet with pain. "My leg is open. Marcus, please." He stared at the door with the expression of a man, hearing his worst fear dressed in a familiar voice. "I can see the bone," it said. Marcus whispered, "Stop. Please. Stop. Please, brother." Lucy ran down the stairs and grabbed Marcus from behind, burying her face between his shoulders. "It is not me. Please do not open it." The thing outside began to sob. It sobbed in Lucy's voice. It sobbed like a young woman, bleeding to death in the cold. Marcus covered his ears and sank to his knees. The crying continued for nearly an hour. Sometimes it was Lucy, sometimes Daniel's uncle, sometimes Claire's mother, who had died 3 years earlier. That broke her. She crawled toward the door without seeming to know she was moving, her face empty, eyes wide and shining. "Mom!" Noah caught her around the waist and dragged her back. Claire fought him with sudden, feral strength. "Let me go. She is outside. She needs me." "No, she does not." "Let me go." "She is dead, Claire." Claire slapped him so hard the sound cracked across the room. The voice outside whispered, "Baby, open the door." Claire stopped fighting. Her mouth trembled. The whisper came again. "Baby, it is so cold." Emma took Claire's face in both hands and forced her to look away from the door. "That is not your mother." Claire blinked. "That is not her." Claire's face collapsed, and she wept until she could barely breathe. At midnight, the generator died. The cabin plunged into darkness, except for the fire. Noah swore and grabbed a flashlight. Daniel said, "No. We need power. We need to stay inside. The generator is 10 feet from the porch. Then it can stay dead." Noah's fear sharpened into anger. "I am not sitting here all night waiting for that thing to come through the walls." Daniel moved between him and the door. "You go outside, you die." Noah's eyes flicked toward Claire, who was curled on the floor by the hearth. "We cannot just do nothing." "That is exactly what we do." From the loft, a floorboard creaked. Everyone looked up. Lucy was standing near the railing, but Marcus was still kneeling by the stairs, holding Lucy's hand. There was another Lucy in the loft. She stood half in shadow, head tilted to one side, hair hanging over her face. The real Lucy made a strangled sound. The thing in the loft smiled. Its teeth were too many. Then it unfolded. It had squeezed itself through the small loft window, somehow forcing its long body through a gap no human could pass. Its limbs cracked as they lengthened. Its back rose, vertebrae pushing up beneath the skin like stones under wet cloth. The imitation of Lucy peeled away in pieces, not literally as a mask, but as a lie that could no longer hold. The face stretched, the jaw dropped, the eyes sank back and began to glow. Marcus ran for the stairs. "Lucy, move." The creature dropped from the loft. It landed on Noah. There was no time for him to scream properly. His mouth opened, but the sound came out crushed and wet as the thing drove him into the floor. Its long hands closed around his shoulders. The fingers sank in as if his jacket and skin were soft mud. Noah convulsed beneath it, boots hammering the boards. Claire screamed his name. The creature bent low over him. Its antlers scraped the ceiling. Noah shoved the hunting knife upward. The blade went into the creature's throat with a thick, black sound. It paused, its glowing eyes lowered to the handle, sticking from its neck. Then it laughed. It laughed in Noah's voice. Good one. Its jaws opened. They opened wider than any living jaw should open, splitting at the corners, until the mouth became a ragged black wound. It bit into Noah's face. The sound was not like biting fruit or tearing meat. It was worse. It was a dense, cracking pressure, a collapse of bone and cartilage beneath teeth. Noah's hands slapped at the creature's head. His heels drummed against the floor. Blood splashed across the boards in hot arcs, speckling Claire's cheek and the front of Emma's sweater. The creature shook its head once, violently, and something pale tore loose. Noah's scream became a bubbling howl. Marcus grabbed the iron poker from beside the fire and swung it into the creature's ribs. The blow landed with a metallic crack, as if striking a bundle of branches wrapped in meat. The creature reared back, dragging Noah with it. Its teeth were still buried in him. Daniel seized a burning log from the hearth and drove it against the creature's side. The skin hissed. The thing shrieked, and this time the sound was not borrowed. It was thin and high and ancient, a sound that seemed to scrape the inside of the skull. It released Noah and sprang backward. Noah lay on the floor. His face was ruined. One side had been torn open from cheek to brow. His eye hung against his temple by a glistening strand. His jaw worked soundlessly, crooked and loose, as blood poured into his throat. Claire crawled to him, hands slipping in red as she tried to hold together what could not be held. Noah, look at me. He looked at nothing. The creature crouched near the stairs, smoke rising from its burned flesh. The wound in its throat leaked black fluid down its chest. It grinned around a strip of Noah's skin caught between its teeth. Then it spoke, with Noah's broken voice. Claire. Claire froze. Noah's body shuddered once. The creature whispered, "Help me." Claire turned. Daniel shouted, "Do not look at it." But she did. The creature's eyes brightened. Claire rose slowly, as though pulled by invisible thread. Emma grabbed her arm. Claire did not seem to feel it. Noah needs me. Noah's body lay at her feet, twitching in a widening pool. The thing opened its arms. Claire walked toward it. Marcus lunged, but the creature moved first. One long hand wrapped around Claire's throat and lifted her from the floor. Her feet kicked weakly. Her fingers clawed at its wrist. The creature drew her close, almost tenderly, and pressed its long snout against her hair. It inhaled. Claire's eyes bulged. The creature's tongue slid out, black and narrow, tasting the tears on her face. Then it drove its other hand beneath her ribs. Claire's scream filled the cabin. The fingers pushed upward inside her with obscene ease. Her body arched. The creature watched her face with terrible curiosity, as if studying how pain changed a person. It twisted its wrist. Something inside Claire tore with a sound like wet cloth splitting. Blood ran down her legs and pattered onto the floor. Emma screamed and threw the lantern at it. Glass shattered across the creature's back. Flame burst over its shoulders as oil spilled and caught. The thing dropped Claire, shrieking again, thrashing against the wall. Fire crawled over its matted hair. The cabin filled with smoke and the stink of burned rot. Claire hit the floor and tried to crawl. She made it only a few inches before her arms gave out. She looked at Noah. Her mouth moved around his name. Then she sagged, eyes fixed open, one hand reaching toward him. Daniel grabbed Emma. Marcus grabbed Lucy. They ran for Daniel's bedroom at the back of the cabin. The creature slammed into the wall behind them, still burning. They threw themselves into the small room and shoved the dresser against the door. Daniel's hands shook so badly he could barely hold the flashlight. Emma was coughing, her hair streaked with blood that was not hers. Marcus held Lucy against his chest while she sobbed without sound. The creature hit the door. The dresser jumped. Again, the wood cracked. Again, Daniel pressed his back to the dresser, legs braced, every muscle burning. Emma searched the room frantically. Window. Daniel looked. The window was small, but a person could fit through it. Outside was the back of the cabin. Beyond that, the woods. Marcus saw the thought on his face. No, we cannot stay. That thing is outside too. It is inside now. The creature struck the door again. A long black finger punched through the wood near Daniel's ear, wriggling blindly. Lucy screamed. Marcus smashed the finger with the fireplace poker. It snapped with a dry crack. The creature withdrew it and began laughing. This time it laughed in Claire's voice. "Baby, open the door." Daniel shut his eyes. Emma whispered, "The cars. They are in front. We can circle around. In the dark. We die here if we do not." The door split down the middle. Daniel nodded. Marcus opened the window. Cold air poured in, sharp and damp. The smell of the woods rushed over them. Daniel went first, dropping into mud beneath the window. Emma followed, then Lucy. Marcus climbed out last just as the bedroom door exploded inward. The creature forced its burning body through the doorway. Its antlers caught in the frame, splintering wood. Flames had eaten part of its shoulder, exposing blackened bone beneath. The knife still protruded from its throat. Its lower jaw was slick with Noah's blood. It saw them through the open window. It smiled. "Run," it said in Daniel's voice. They ran. The forest swallowed them immediately. Behind the cabin, there was no path. Only trees, brush, roots, and stones hidden beneath dead leaves. Daniel led with the flashlight, though the beam bounced wildly with every step. Branches whipped his face. Mud sucked at his boots. Emma stayed close behind him. Lucy stumbled again and again until Marcus half carried her. Behind them, the cabin burned brighter. The creature screamed from inside it. Then the scream stopped. For one terrible second, there was only the sound of their own ragged breathing. Then something moved in the trees to their left. Fast, Daniel swung the flashlight. Nothing. A voice called from the darkness. Daniel, wait. It was Emma's voice. But Emma was beside him. She grabbed his sleeve. Do not stop. They kept running. The voice followed. Daniel, please, my ankle. Emma ran beside him, breathing hard. The voice behind them sobbed. Please. Lucy cried, make it stop. Marcus said, do not listen. Then their mother's voice came from ahead of them. Lucy and Marcus both stopped. It was soft and warm and impossible. My bobbies. Marcus went rigid. Lucy whispered, Mom. Daniel turned back. No, keep moving. The voice came again, closer. My sweet bobbies, come here. Lucy shook her head, tears spilling down her face. She used to say that. Marcus gripped her shoulders. She is gone. I know. Then move. Lucy did. But something had changed in the woods. The trees no longer seemed arranged the way they had been. The flashlight beam caught the same broken stump 3 times. The ground sloped down, then somehow brought them back to the same rise. The cabin fire disappeared behind them, then appeared ahead, glowing between the trunks like a red eye. Daniel stopped, gasping. Emma looked around. We are going in circles. That is not possible. Look, she pointed. There, nailed to a tree, was an old metal sign Daniel remembered from childhood. Private land. He had seen it near the cabin driveway. They had been running for 10 minutes. Somehow they were back near the beginning. The woods clicked, not with insects, with joints. From every direction came small wet pops and cracks, like bones being reset. Marcus lifted the poker. Where is it? Daniel whispered everywhere. Something dropped from the trees behind Marcus. Lucy screamed. The creature landed silently, crouched on all 4s now, its body folded into an animal shape. The antlers dragged through the leaves. Its burned flesh smoked in the cold air. The missing finger had already begun to split and lengthen again, a new black claw pushing through the stump. Marcus shoved Lucy toward Daniel. Go. Lucy grabbed him. No. Go. The creature tilted its head. Then it spoke in Marcus's voice. Go. Marcus charged. He struck the creature across the head with the iron poker. The blow snapped one antler halfway off. The creature recoiled, more surprised than hurt. Marcus struck again, driving the iron into its glowing eye. The eye burst. Black fluid sprayed across his face. The creature screamed and thrashed backward, claws raking the earth. Daniel grabbed Lucy and pulled her away, while Emma shouted Marcus's name. Marcus turned to run. The creature's arm shot out. Its fingers closed around his calf. Marcus fell hard, chin striking a stone. The poker flew from his hand. Lucy tore away from Daniel and ran back. Daniel caught her around the waist. No. Marcus looked at his sister. His mouth was full of blood from where he had bitten through his tongue. "Lucy, do not." The creature dragged him backward. He clawed at the leaves, fingernails ripping loose in the dirt. Emma and Daniel lunged for him, each grabbing one of his arms, pulling with everything they had. For one frantic moment, Marcus stretched between them and the thing, his face twisted in agony. Then the creature planted one foot against his back and pulled harder. Marcus's shoulder came apart. Not cleanly. There was a wet, tearing sound, a grinding pop, and his scream changed pitch as tendons snapped. Daniel fell backward, holding Marcus's left arm from wrist to shoulder, suddenly weightless and wrong. Lucy's scream broke into something animal. Marcus was dragged into the dark. The sounds that followed were mercifully hidden by the trees, but not softened. A crunch, a scream, a ripping, sucking sound. Marcus begging once, then Marcus laughing. Lucy collapsed. Daniel dropped the severed arm and vomited into the leaves. Emma stood over Lucy, shaking, flashlight pointed into the dark. Marcus's voice called from somewhere ahead. "Lucy." She did not move. "Lucy, it does not hurt anymore." Emma slapped her. Lucy blinked up at her, stunned. Emma's voice was fierce and broken. "Get up, or he died for nothing." Lucy got up. They ran again. Daniel no longer knew where they were going. The road, the cars, the cabin, sunrise, none of it felt real. There was only the next tree, the next breath, the next patch of ground that did not collapse beneath them. The creature followed without hurry. Sometimes they saw it between the trunks, tall again, walking on two legs with Marcus's arm hanging from its mouth. Sometimes it crawled low through the brush, antlers cutting lines through the fog near the ground. Sometimes it was only a voice, Claire singing softly, Noah swearing, Marcus telling Lucy to turn around, Daniel's uncle whispering, "I told you, Danny boy." The forest opened suddenly into a clearing. At its center stood a small shed Daniel had forgotten, an old smokehouse built of stone and warped wood, half sunk into the ground. His uncle had used it to hang deer meat during hunting season. It had no windows, only one heavy door. Daniel staggered toward it. Emma caught his meaning immediately. Inside, stone walls, one door, better than trees. They reached the smokehouse and forced the door open. The inside smelled of old ash and animal fat. Rusted hooks hung from ceiling beams. The dirt floor was dry and hard. Daniel shoved Emma and Lucy inside, then pulled the door shut. There was an iron latch. He dropped it into place. Darkness swallowed them. Emma clicked the flashlight on. The beam revealed old stains on the walls. Long, dark streaks. Not deer. There were carvings in the stone, too. Marks scratched deep with a knife or nail. Some looked like warnings. Some looked like names. Others were crude drawings of antlers, eyes, and long hands. Lucy slid down the wall, trembling. Emma crouched in front of her. Stay with me. Lucy stared through her. It sounded like her. I know. My mother. I know. And Marcus. Emma swallowed. I know. Daniel stood at the door, listening. Outside, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. Then footsteps approached. Slow, dragging. A shadow blocked the thin gap beneath the door. Daniel lifted the iron poker Marcus had lost, and Emma had somehow grabbed while running. He did not remember her picking it up. He was grateful she had. A knock came at the door. Lucy began to sob again. Marcus's voice said, "It is me." No one answered. "Daniel, I am hurt." Daniel closed his eyes. "I can help you kill it." Emma whispered, "It is trying to make us open the door." "I know." Marcus's voice shifted. It became Noah. "Come on, Dan. This is stupid." Then Claire. "It is cold out here." Then Daniel's uncle. "Fire keeps it back, boy." Daniel opened his eyes. Fire. The smokehouse had an old fire pit. Above it hung blackened racks. Daniel swept the flashlight around. In one corner lay a stack of dry kindling, forgotten, but sheltered from rain. Beside it were old jars of lamp oil. Emma saw it too. They moved quickly, quietly. Daniel poured oil over the wood. Emma struck matches with shaking fingers. The first broke. The second flared, then went out. The third caught. The fire bloomed small and hungry. Light filled the smokehouse. Outside, the creature went silent. Lucy looked up. Does fire hurt it? Daniel watched the door. Yes. The roof creaked. Dust fell from above. Emma lifted the flashlight. The ceiling boards shifted. Daniel's heart stopped. The smokehouse had no windows, but it had a chimney vent, a narrow square opening above the old racks. Something black slid through it. Not the whole creature, just an arm. Thin, boneless, too long. It dangled from the ceiling, fingers opening and closing above Lucy's head. Emma screamed. Daniel swung the poker upward. The iron struck the wrist. The arm snapped back through the vent. The creature shrieked from the roof. Then the entire smokehouse shook. Stone groaned. The thing was on top of them, clawing at the vent, tearing at the old chimney stones. Bits of mortar rained down. The fire flickered as cold air poured in. Daniel grabbed one of the oil jars. Emma, she understood. He threw the jar upward, just as the creature forced its head through the widening vent. For one impossible second, its face filled the opening. One eye gone, a black pit leaking down its snout, the other eye burning yellow. Its antlers scraped stone. Its teeth parted. It spoke in Emma's voice. Daniel, I love you. The jar shattered against its face. Oil splashed over its head and neck. Emma thrust a burning stick upward. The creature ignited. Flame rushed across its skull, through the tangled hair, along the antlers. It screamed so loudly, Lucy clapped both hands over her ears, and Daniel felt warm blood trickle from one of his own. The creature pulled back, thrashing on the roof. The smokehouse shook again. Then part of the ceiling collapsed. Burning debris fell in a shower. Emma shoved Lucy aside, but a beam struck Emma across the shoulder and drove her to the ground. Daniel dragged her free. Her sweater smoked. Her face was gray with pain. "My shoulder." Daniel looked. The beam had torn deep into her upper arm. Blood soaked the fabric, black in the firelight. Lucy crawled to her. "We have to go." The door exploded inward. The creature filled the entrance, burning from head to spine. Its antlers were aflame. One had broken completely, leaving a jagged stump. Its skin split and curled in the heat, revealing layers beneath that looked wrong, not muscle, not tendon, but something like old roots packed in blood. Its ribs opened and closed as it breathed, and inside the cage of bone, something pulsed, dark and swollen. It stepped into the smokehouse. The firelight made it look even larger. Daniel stood in front of Emma, and Lucy with the iron poker raised. The creature looked at him, then at Emma. It spoke softly in Daniel's voice. "She will die because of you." Daniel charged. He did not think. Thinking would have stopped him. He drove the poker into the creature's chest, aiming for the pulsing thing behind the ribs. The iron slid between bones with a sickening resistance. The creature screamed and folded over him, claws raking his back. Pain tore across Daniel like fire. He felt skin open from shoulder to hip. Warm blood ran down his spine, but he pushed harder. The poker sank deeper. The creature seized his head in both hands. Its fingers wrapped around his skull. He felt the pressure, the beginning of a crack. Emma rose behind him with one of the iron meat hooks from the wall. She drove it into the creature's remaining eye. The hook went deep. The yellow light vanished. The creature released Daniel and reeled backward, blind and burning, thrashing wildly. Its claws struck the walls. Its antlers scraped sparks from the stone. It tore at its own face, trying to pull the hook free. Lucy grabbed an oil jar and hurled it at the fire. Flames roared up between them and the thing. The creature stumbled back through the doorway into the clearing. Daniel collapsed. Emma caught him as best she could, crying out when her injured shoulder took his weight. Lucy grabbed his other side. They dragged him out through smoke and flame. The clearing was chaos. The creature staggered in circles, burning bright against the black forest. It no longer used voices. It made only that terrible high shriek, the sound of something old being forced to feel pain. Daniel, Emma, and Lucy crawled toward the trees. Behind them, the smokehouse fire spread. The creature dropped to all fours. For a moment, Daniel thought it was dying. Then it turned its ruined head toward them. It could not see, but it could hear. Lucy was crying. The creature charged. Emma pushed Daniel away and stood in its path with the burning branch in one hand and the meat hook in the other. "No," Daniel gasped. The creature hit her. They went down together. Emma drove the burning branch into its open mouth. The creature bit down, snapping it in half, flames spilling between its teeth. Its claws sank into her stomach. Emma screamed through clenched teeth and hooked both arms around its neck, holding it close. "Run!" Daniel tried to stand. His legs failed. Lucy grabbed him. Emma looked at Daniel once. Her face was streaked with blood and soot. Her eyes were steady. Terrified, yes, but steady. "Run!" Then she jammed the meat hook deeper into the creature's skull and twisted. The creature reared up with Emma still in its claws. Its burning body slammed into the smokehouse wall. Stone, fire, and old timber collapsed on top of them both. The clearing vanished in sparks. Lucy dragged Daniel into the trees. He fought her at first, or thought he did. His body had become distant, heavy, useless. His back was open. Each breath tasted like pennies and ash. The world narrowed to Lucy's hands under his arms, Lucy's sobs, Lucy whispering, "Please," as she pulled him over roots and through mud. Behind them, the creature screamed. Then Emma screamed. Then neither did. The forest changed after that. The trees thinned. The ground became flatter. A pale seam appeared between the trunks. The road Lucy dragged Daniel onto, it just as dawn began to gray the sky. The cars sat where they had left them. Their windows were broken. The tires were shredded. The doors hung open like mouths. Lucy made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost a sob. Daniel lay on his back in the road, looking up at the sky through the black net of branches. Snow had begun to fall, though the forecast had said nothing about snow. Thin white flakes drifted down and melted on his face. Lucy stumbled to the truck and searched inside. She found a first aid kit, then came back and pressed bandages against Daniel's back with shaking hands. "We have to walk," she said. "When you can stand, we walk." Daniel did not answer. He was looking past her, at the edge of the road, between the trees. Emma stood there. Lucy followed his gaze. Her face went empty. Emma was burned, blackened, her hair gone in patches, her sweater torn open at the stomach. But she stood upright, one hand resting against a tree. Her eyes were soft and sad. Daniel knew it was not her, even before she smiled, even before her mouth opened too wide, even before she spoke in Emma's voice. "Daniel." Lucy backed away, shaking her head. The thing took one step from the trees. Its body was smaller now, almost human beneath the damage. It had worn Emma poorly, like a dress pulled over broken branches. The skin did not fit around the joints. The neck bent at the wrong angle. Beneath Emma's burned face, something dark shifted and breathed. Daniel tried to rise, but he could not. Lucy picked up Noah's hunting knife from the truck floor. The creature smiled at her with Emma's mouth. "Lucy," it said. Lucy screamed and ran at it. For one heartbeat, Daniel saw her clearly in the gray dawn. Small, blood-soaked, furious, carrying all the grief the night had given her. The creature opened its arms. Lucy did not stop. She drove the knife into the creature's throat, into the same wound Noah had made. The thing shrieked and lifted her off the ground. Lucy held on, legs kicking, both hands on the knife, pushing deeper. Daniel crawled toward them. The creature slammed Lucy into a tree. Once, twice, her body loosened, but her hands stayed locked around the knife. The creature struck her again. Her skull hit bark with a dull, final sound. Daniel screamed her name. Lucy sagged. The creature dropped her. The knife remained in its throat. It looked down at her body, curious. Then it looked at Daniel. Dawn brightened behind the trees. The creature flinched, not from the light exactly, but from what came with it. Birds began to call. The forest exhaled. The long, unnatural night started to lose its hold. The thing stepped back. Its burned face twitched. Emma's features slid out of place. Beneath them, the long animal skull pressed forward again. Antlers pushed through ruined skin, smaller now, jagged and raw. The creature's remaining flesh smoked in the morning air. It spoke one last time, not in Emma's voice, not Noah's, not Marcus's, not Claire's, not Lucy, in Daniel's own voice, perfect and intimate, as if the words were coming from inside his chest. I know how you sound now. Then it slipped between the trees and was gone. Daniel was found 6 hours later by a forest ranger who had seen smoke rising beyond the ridge. By then, he had crawled almost a mile down the road, leaving a dark trail behind him. He was half frozen, delirious, and still whispering the names of the dead. The ranger said later that Daniel kept begging him not to speak, not to call for help, not to say anything out loud in the woods. They found what was left of the cabin. They found Noah and Claire inside, or enough of them to name. They found the smokehouse collapsed into a black pit of stone and ash. They found Marcus in pieces scattered through the trees, arranged in a circle, as if something had been learning the shape of a man by taking him apart. They found Lucy near the road, one hand still clenched around the handle of the knife. They did not find Emma. Not a bone, not a tooth, not a scrap of cloth. At the hospital, Daniel told the police everything. He told them about the voice at the window, the thing in the loft, the burning smokehouse, the way it had worn Emma's face at dawn. The officers wrote most of it down as shock, trauma, survivor confusion, an animal attack maybe, a killer in the woods perhaps. They asked whether Noah had brought drugs, whether Marcus had enemies, whether Daniel and Emma had been involved, whether jealousy could explain some part of it. Daniel stopped answering. After 3 weeks, he was released. After 6, he left the state. After 8, he began hearing Emma outside his apartment window. He lived on the 3rd floor. There was no balcony, The first time, she only said his name. The second time, she asked him to open the window. The third time, she cried. Daniel moved again. Then again. It always found him. Not every night. That would have been easier. Sometimes months passed. Sometimes almost a year. Long enough for Daniel to believe the world had rules again. Long enough to sit in a restaurant without watching the reflections in the glass. Long enough to hear someone whistle and not feel his heart stop. Then one night, there would be a tap on the window, 3 soft taps, and a voice he loved would ask to be let in. Daniel grew older. His scars healed into thick, pale ridges across his back. He stopped sleeping in rooms with windows. He stopped answering phone calls from unknown numbers after one came through in Marcus's voice and said, "I can still feel my arm." He tried to kill himself once, but the rope snapped. When he woke on the floor, gasping and bruised, Lucy's voice whispered from the closet, "Do not leave before I get there." After that, he decided survival was not mercy. It was punishment. Years later, Daniel returned to the woods. He was thinner then, gray at the temples. His hands shook even when he was sober, which was always now. He carried no gun, no knife, only a can of lamp oil, a box of matches, and the iron poker from the cabin fireplace, recovered from evidence after the case went cold. The dirt road had almost vanished beneath weeds. The trees were taller. The cabin was gone, replaced by a hollow of black earth where nothing grew. Daniel stood there until sunset. The forest darkened. The birds stopped, and from between the pines came Emma's voice. "You came back." Daniel closed his eyes. "Yes." "Did you miss me?" "Yes." Something moved in the trees. Tall, bent, antlers scraping branches. Daniel poured the lamp oil over himself. The voice changed. It became his uncle. "Danny boy, what are you doing?" Daniel struck a match. The creature stepped closer. Its eyes glowed yellow in the dark. Its body was just as he remembered, and worse. Long arms dragging near the ground. Wet black skin stretched over the ribs. Patches of stolen hair clinging to its spine. A long, ruined face full of broken teeth. Antlers crowned its skull, twisted and jagged, decorated with strips of something pale that fluttered when it breathed. It smiled, with Emma's mouth, with Noah's teeth, with Marcus's voice, with Claire's sob, with Lucy's broken little laugh. Daniel held the match to his soaked shirt. Flame rushed up his chest. The pain was immediate and enormous, but he did not scream. The creature watched. For the first time, Daniel thought he saw something like uncertainty in its glowing eyes. He walked toward it. The thing stepped back. Daniel smiled through the fire. "You know how I sound," he whispered. Then he opened his burning arms. The creature lunged. The woods filled with flame. No one knows what happened after that. The fire spread through 8 acres before rain came from a clear sky and killed it. Investigators found a circle of scorched trees at the center, their trunks bent outward as if something powerful had burst between them. In the ash lay the iron poker, warped almost in half. There were bones too, some human, some animal, some no expert could identify. Daniel Ward was declared dead, though they never found enough of him to bury. For a while, the woods were quiet. Then hikers began hearing voices after dark. A woman calling from the ravine, a man begging for help near the old road, a young girl crying for her brother, and sometimes, much closer than the others, a burned voice whispering from just beyond the trees. Do not answer. Do not whistle. Do not look too long at its face. And if someone you love calls from the dark, asking to be let in, listen carefully. Listen to the breath beneath the words. Listen to the hunger, because some things can wear a voice like skin. And once they learn yours, they never forget it. Thank you for listening to this tale from the darkness. If this story followed you into the corners of the room, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more whispered horror stories from Whispers in the Dark. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment so divine. Whispers of the night,